Now we tripping.
Axel.
The system.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Today is September 10th, 2022, exactly noon. So I should certainly go ahead and wish you guys a happy Saturday. But most of all, welcome to Season 4, Episode 9 of the phenomenon known to all mankind. It's Saturday afternoon's main event. Now, surely if you've been a part of the show for so long, you may know who the hell I am. And if not, then I suggest you go ahead, go to the library, pick out the biggest dictionary you can find, preferably Merriam-Webster, and look me up under the word phenomenal, because I am the one that will surely lead you to the island of relevancy. And of course, I'm the only person out here that can go ahead and rock a perfect 2000s Jerry curl. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, look at me. But listen, jokes aside, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the phenomenal one, and you already know I'm never alone when it comes to Saturday afternoon's main event. So, of course, joined by my side is my tag team partner, the Deep Voice Dynamo, the legendary, most sophisticated person that can go ahead and become a wrestling encyclopedia. But the fact of the matter is that he already is one. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing son of a gun who's not having a hard time holding its alligators down. And give me 2 claps and a peep's nate.
Woo! There we go. Thank you, my partner. Here once again. Deep Voice Dynamo sitting in the chair with another. To say that today could actually be a legendary show today is probably the biggest understatement that I can give you. But we are here. Let us just enjoy the Saturday that is the chaos theory of Saturday afternoon's main event, following the week that we've had to endure as wrestling fans. Woo!
Talk about. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we have a show that is certainly packed for you guys. If you can't go ahead and take the memo, listen. For what we have for you guys today, it's a lot. It is a lot. And the fact that I have to go ahead and play Broken Dreams is just astonishingly, it's crazy. Because, we're going to have Fast Track. We're going to have the questions without a shadow of a doubt. You think I'm going to go ahead and leave Saturday afternoon's main event today without having peeps go ahead and enjoy his questions? That's absurd.
Yes.
But the difference between today and all other episodes is that today we only have one topic for the main event of the show. So stay tuned, yes, because you guys will certainly oh my God. You see, I told peeps something and it was like this. I said, I'm going to be pulling a Sean Ross Sapp, okay? I'm going to be pulling a Jim Cornette, and I'm most certainly pulling a Dave Meltzer today. So, ladies and gentlemen, you want to be a part of it? Stay tuned for this.
Yes.
Without further ado, let's go ahead and get the show started with first off, Fast Track. Ladies and gentlemen, of
about
course,
as fast as you can really get.
Oh yeah, it's gonna get fast. It's gonna get fast.
Yes.
You know something? Let's just go ahead and get started with this. Ladies and gentlemen, if you watched Clash at the Castle last week on Saturday, then you may know, aside from Tyson Fury pulling the ultimate Elton John, we also know that Solo Sikoa made his debut in WWE, which means that now he's a part of the bloodline. And the way that it happened, of course, we all thought that this was going to be a ECW One Night Stand 06 realm where McIntyre was going to come out on top in his home country in a packed stadium for the first UK show in 30 years. Nope. 1 Claymore, 1, 2, referee gets pulled out. What's next? We think it's probably Gable Stevenson. What's next? Some wrestling marks thought it was Bray Wyatt.
Yes.
I digress. First one of the day.
The first one of the day.
Gentlemen, it wasn't any of those people. It was Solo Sikoa.
Yes.
What a perfect way to go ahead and make his debut. Takes the referee out of the spot. Referee comes back in the ring after Reigns hits a spear. 1, 2, Reigns retains. And, it's okay. It happens. Because we all know that this may be something big in the next coming months. Which I may go ahead and add that the fact that I think this will happen is that Cody is most certainly taking the titles off Reigns come Mania next year. Because, peeps, what? Like, who else is going to dethrone Roman Reigns if it wasn't Drew McIntyre? We all said that during the draft. McIntyre getting drafted to SmackDown seems like the only liable person to go ahead and take the title off Reigns.
Yes.
You had this perfect moment in time, in history. It was set big fight feel. We all thought that this was Hogan versus Andre. Not in the stance of like a giant versus small dude. We're talking like going in, no bloodline by his side, no Paul Heyman. The man looked vulnerable. Drew looked like he had his numbers the first 4 minutes of the match. And that ending completely shocked us all.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
I'm thinking that of all of the things in the 6 or 8 weeks that Triple H has been running WWE as far as the creative side and booking, this is probably the most disappointing decision that I've seen that he's made so far. Now, obviously, he has a handle on what he's showing as longer term steps to build something. So I will go and say, you know what, I will hold off. But I am going to be fair. The only time that really made sense, unless they're just really trying to make sure that Roman keeps onto that belt until WrestleMania, and they have this whole long-term record of how many days and how many weeks and longest reigning, et cetera, if that's where they're going, that's why I see why they did it. But what would have made much more sense is to have Drew win in front of his countrymen, let the people go home happy. And as I remember texting you, I said, the difference, they turned this card into what could have been a super show, pay-per-view, premium live event quality decision, and they turned it into Beast from the East. Mm-hmm. And for those that can remember a few years back, that was one of the first premium live events as it was done on the WWE network from Japan live to kind of show the re-debut of Brock Lesnar in the WWE after he spent his long term away coming from the UFC. And that was nothing more than a glorified house show because it was Brock versus The Big Show.
Yep.
They took what could have been a memorable, because all of the matches on the card were really good. The crowd was hungry. Everything tasted delicious. All of the seasoning was there. And then what did they do? They threw a stinky fish right in the middle of the end and then made it smell bad. And the fans went home, not only, although they were happy that they got to see Drew and everything else was there, they got a singing karaoke segment at the end, which was the most baffling thing. As I saw it, I'm like, maybe something else is going to happen. And then I saw it and I said, that's it? That's it? And that was a disservice to Drew, who did not have his WrestleMania style moment in front of people. I don't agree with this. This should have been the only way out. And then you build Solo Sikoa in as saying, you know what? The bloodline is weak. We got to go ahead and get reinforcements. You bring Solo Sikoa up later on. If for nothing else, that Drew has the belt for at least 1 month to build into the next premium live event, or maybe hold on to it until Survivor Series. Show some vulnerability with Roman before he re-gears up and wins the championship back. Exactly. But hey, I digress. There's my
there it goes.
So we got 2 already. You can tell what kind of show this is going to be.
Oh yes. As
a matter of fact, this is to go to show you I've got my light side lightsaber and my dark side lightsaber.
Oh, it's like that today.
We're going Star Wars today, okay?
Ladies and gentlemen,
there's no vroom, 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 but we got dark side and light side.
It's done. You know when you get when Peeps has 2 pens, you know it's over. I'm just saying that now. But ladies and gentlemen, from there, a day later, you know who else goes ahead and make some type of debut type return? Of course, the Joker. Okay, let me just shut up. Ladies and gentlemen, MJF is back.
Yes.
Amen. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Oh my, I'm about to cry.
It's okay. It's okay.
He's back.
He's funny. Back. MJF came back, and yet it wasn't the first topic of the show. I wonder if that kind of plays into the type of show we're going to have today.
Peeps, don't spoil it for him. Don't spoil it for him.
I just wonder. I'm just saying. I haven't spoiled anything. That is what's called a teaser.
Yes,
That's a teaser.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
Okay.
But
Okay. So here's the thing. MJF comes back in a casino ladder match after Stokely and his henchmen go ahead and retrieve the chip.
which was hilarious. I'm sorry, that was funny.
Yes, that was funny. It
Yeah.
was funny. But what was funny was the fact that the minute the music starts, and it's the Devil's Symphony by AC/DC, and you see the Joker coming out with the manual, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, how can this not be him? It has, if it's not him, and they pull the ultimate rib on us, I kid you not, this will be the highlight of the night. Because it has to be him. And after the world title match in Chicago.
Yes.
Chicago, ladies and gentlemen, the hometown of one Charles Montgomery Punk.
Yes.
He's getting cheered for, okay?
Yes.
Then the lights go off. A voicemail plays with the voice of Tony Khan talking to the Joker about coming back. He'll put him in the casino ladder match and you'll get a chance at the title and we'll pay you tons of money. Then CM Punk promo back from 05 while he was feuding with Raven, where he goes ahead and he talks about, you know, silly old man, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to make people think that he didn't exist. And from there, the same Joker who appeared earlier that night comes out, faces the other side of the screen, removes the mask, and puts on that Burberry scarf. And the minute you hear Better Than You echo through the speakers of the Now Arena in Chicago, Illinois, you see MJF walking out, and the fans cheer harder for Maxwell Jacob Friedman than they did for Charles Montgomery Punk.
Yes.
You can't make this up!
Yes.
Peeps. Now, aside from the fact that you said that this wasn't the most talked about thing, okay? Because we're still teasing this.
Yes.
What was your thoughts about this specific moment right here?
My take on it, especially after everything calmed and the show ended, my thought process was the person that basically made the most noise was the one that said nothing at all. His silence was deafening because when he came out and by the time he was done and then he went back into the locker room while the show was over, he didn't say a word. And the fact that he did that as boisterous and as gregarious and as over the top as MJF can be, he said absolutely nothing. And the fact that he didn't have to say anything and yet was probably the most over person in that building tells you something about how the fans in Chicago feel about MJF. That is the reason why he is probably the most important figure in ring that this company has. Just from the standpoint, we had not seen or heard from him other than here and there at an airport or somewhere, took a picture with him or whatever was the case. We haven't heard or seen from him since June. June, we're talking 3 months since literally the beginning, just before the summer started.
Yes, sir.
So he literally wanted to go out there and say, you know what? You didn't forget me, did you? So, yeah.
Most certainly didn't. Most certainly didn't. So to see him back, amazing. From there, ladies and gentlemen, you know, let's go ahead and change the mood because, you know, it's something about this is going to be great. See? And I have to go ahead and play something else. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's how this goes. And no, Austin didn't return either. Okay, calm down, ladies and gentlemen. But the fact of the matter is that all hell has broken loose. We have new trio world champions, and no, ladies and gentlemen, it is not the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
Ay. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it was at All Out, but due to
Yes.
other specific reasons that we will get into later in the show,
Yes.
we have new trio world champions, and guess who it is? The Death Triangle.
Yes. Like I said, we've gone from light to dark, back to light. I'm telling you.
This is crazy.
There,
This is crazy.
there are lots of twists and turns and everything else. But in all reality, to get back to that, and we'll discuss the reasons why this is so confusing to those that haven't looked at what's been going on in AEW this week. The Death Triangle being World Trios champions, it fits. Just based on the chemistry, the match that they had with Best Friends. And I think going forward, you're going to start to see even more really good matches from Death Triangle. And that will then elevate other people into trios tag team title matches and probably combinations that we haven't thought of or haven't seen yet, or maybe that we have that haven't teamed up in a while, and get really good quality matches. Because as I said before, the trios tag team division is the equivalent of the cruiserweight division in WCW, where the trios tag team matches have literally become the backbone of AEW. And we're starting to see that on a regular basis.
And that's a good thing. But guess what? Pac now has 2 titles.
Yes.
Even though one of them still isn't on the main part of a show. You know, I digress. Third one of the day.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
I think people are going to be drowning in I digresses by the end of the show.
It's going to be great, ladies and gentlemen. Continue to stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Tell your friends.
Yes.
This is about to be great. Ladies and gentlemen, from there, we still stay in AEW. Jake Hager signs an extension. This is a great move. I'm liking it. Listen, the more we get to see the Jericho Appreciation Society and the more we get to see it, Jake Hager is perfect. Now, the fact of the matter is that we know he may not be in a singles run anytime soon, but still, around Jericho, it still makes most sense. It's just around the sense of booking. Peeps,
Yes.
aside from Hager, who's another person that you sense that needs an extension right now in this world that can still be an asset to Tony Khan's glorious? If I should add, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going ahead and crapping on them, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to quote Triple H real quick. Pissant Company.
Well, I tell you one thing. I don't know how long Sammy Guevara is locked up. But yeah, if he doesn't have an extension or hasn't signed an extension, you keep him signed in. Although he has done some really knuckleheaded things and he does have an arrogant way about him, that's one person that you need to make sure and you try and lock up, because he's still in his 20s. He's a young kid and he still has real quality matches. The only problem is, in a lot of instances, he has not grown up yet. We've seen that before in some of the antics. We know about the Eddie Kingston backstage tit for tat that went behind closed doors that got them both suspended for 2 weeks. So going forward, if he can kind of evolve off of that and mature, and they keep him locked up for a few years, perfect star there to have. Because I can see him in the upper main event, mid-card, upper mid-card to mid-card main event status within a year or two. And I would love to see him and Daniel Garcia really go at it, because that would be an absolute gem of a match. I would love to see Sammy Guevara versus Bryan Danielson in another gem of a match. So the possibilities are endless for that right there. So let's see if that's where they're going, and let's see if that's where his head is at as far as his future goes. Like I said, I don't know what his contract situation is now, but if it's somewhere along the lines of where I think it should be, you lock this guy up and you keep him there.
Most definitely, most definitely. From there, talking about locking guys up and keeping him there. Of course he was removed, but he's back now. So many returns.
Yes.
Dang it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't watch Monday Night Raw, let me go ahead and give you something that is not most certainly a prediction. Well, I did predict it, and it wasn't spoiled, because, listen, it happened at the end of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, Braun Strowman is back! God bless Paul Michael Levesque.
Yes.
I don't know. Braun being back kind of smooths the gap now. But now we know that he's on SmackDown.
Yes.
Which means, any revisitation to a match against Roman Reigns, probably for the Royal Rumble. Of course, we know that he's not coming out on top due to the fact that we know what their plans may be.
Yes. The island of relevancy is still filled with bloodline people. So for right now, it's, standing room only.
Yes.
But as far as Braun goes, here's the ironic part of this whole thing, and I'm going to bring it full circle. We talked about in the WWE over the last few months how the tag team division has been absolutely piss poor as far as the conglomeration of tag teams. Usually singles wrestlers, main eventers, mid-card main eventers, they're thrown into a tag team to advance a storyline only for them to break up. And that was because Vince McMahon, who was running the company at the time, that's all he saw tag teams were at. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because Braun Strowman coming back was in a tag team with an 8-year-old a few WrestleManias ago. Braun is gone now. So he's gone all this time. What has it been? 18 months, almost 2 years. Okay, fine. Fast forward to Monday Night Raw in what was a sensational 4-way tag team match to determine a number one contender to get a title shot. And who shows up? Braun Strowman. What does Braun Strowman do? He decimates the tag team division again. When are they going to learn to keep Braun away from tag teams so that the tag team division can actually flourish without him literally decimating everybody?
I mean, it was funny at the end of the day,
Yeah. It was funny, but it was an ironic twist in the fact that we went from Braun Strowman being tag team champions with an 8-year-old and showing you how bad the tag team division was to the way the tag team division has become now under the Triple H regime. And then they bring back Braun Strowman, who's been off the card since the middle of last year, only to come back and destroy 4 tag teams to get himself over. So you pick and choose your poison, but that's what happened there. I think that it was a little overkill, but I'm glad he's back, and then we're going to get to see some really good matches, and it's amazing. It's not subtraction, addition by subtraction. It's more like adding people that were already there that left that are now coming back to re-strengthen the roster. That's looking really good going forward.
Yes, most certainly. But you never know. Who knows? Nicholas makes a return, signs an NIL deal, Shoot.
He's got to be like 13 or 14 right now, right?
Hey, most youngest wrestler in the game, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, that one Indies guy out of, I think it's like, the 5?
Yeah.
Listen.
Good grief.
Yeah, let's not go ahead and talk about Nicholas yet. Yeah, never that. Give it about like 10 more years, peeps. We'll still be here. We'll still be running this.
Let him grow a goatee and a mustache first, and then we'll talk about him afterwards.
Or a pair of kahunas, not to get scared of anybody in the ring. Lord, gee.
See, what did I tell you? Light side, dark side.
Jeez, today's gonna be great. Well, from there, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of Fast Track. Of course, if you want to go ahead and keep up with all the wrestling news, all you have to do is just go ahead, follow us down there. Peeps, thank you at IG at Saturday Afternoons _main event, and we will guarantee to have all of those things there. Okay, so just follow us there. So, as I said, we only have one topic today. So, what we are going to do, since we have already hit the about 30-minute marker, we're going to go ahead and take a quick 30-second break. And when we come back, we will go ahead and get to Peeps' favorite part, the questions, and then our first and only topic of discussion.
Light
today.
side, dark side. That's the theme to this.
Peeps.
Yes.
Don't keep spoiling it for them, man.
I'm not, trust me. I'm piling on the hype. I'm getting it ready. The cauldron bubbling, ready to go, so that everybody can get it.
It's bubbling.
Yes.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
Yes.
Ladies,
I'm not giving them gruel. I'm giving them ratatouille. See? You see what I did?
No rats involved either.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. But ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. The second half of Saturday Afternoon's main event is coming up next. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the second half of Saturday Afternoon's main event. Peeps, how are you feeling right now, man?
I'm feeling good, or as my late grandmother would say, I'm feeling with my hands. So yes,
Works for me. Listen,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, from here we will go ahead and get into the questions. Once again, guys. You want to send in questions? All you have to do, just go down there, follow us at Saturday Afternoons _ main event, DM us a question, it'll be featured, guaranteed to be on the next show. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. First question comes from Long Island Isaiah. He says, Triple H is not just the game or the cerebral assassin. This man is the biggest psychic of our generation with this Punk news. Why do everybody... You guys, listen, we were trying to go ahead and keep this in tuned, okay? It's cool. He's not wrong. That's all I'm saying. He's not wrong because I'm not getting into this yet.
He's not wrong, and we'll divulge that a little later on when we get to the rest of the show. But that will play into what we talk about later. But I will defer to my partner as we get to the next question.
Yes.
But that's a good question, by the way. LII, as I call him for short. Yeah, that's a good question. And you'll see why when we get to the rest of the show.
Of course. Master Sean 007, once again, he says, greetings. Once again, I have a couple of questions that has bothered me with the wrestling industry. Number one, why does every match seem to have interference instead of a clean finish? I think he pertains to the story of Roman Reigns. And he says, two, if there is going to be any interference from a run-in, why does the wrestler's music have to play? That to me kills the element of surprise.
Yeah.
Hughes, what do you think about this?
First of all, that makes a whole lot of sense in the sense that, first of all, let's get to the first part of the question. We have seen over the years, when we look at wrestling, anytime that there's a run-in, sometimes it seems to be overkill. There were times when we would watch, especially AEW, we used to see run-ins in almost, I would say, a third of the matches that were on Dynamite. And it sometimes can become a problem because you're trying to look at the matches and actually enjoy the matches. And we know, especially if you followed Dusty Rhodes' style of booking, and any booking that's gone on over the last, say, 60 years, 50 years, if there is a way to protect the talent in a feud, you're trying to make somebody strong, or maybe to bring up a surprise. You bring in a run-in, so that if the person is designed to lose, they lose looking strong by bringing somebody in to maybe stretch out a feud, begin a feud, further something. Yeah, that makes sense. The problem is it's been overused. And I get where he's going with that first one. Yeah, it's become a problem. And that's something that needs to be rectified. But as we see these wrestling companies with ballooning rosters now, interference is now being used to kind of promote who's there so that you don't forget who they are. And if they're in a faction, it keeps that faction at the forefront of somebody's mind as you're going forward. Now, to get to the second part of that question, I totally agree. If you're looking at a match, or maybe there's a feud or somebody else that's there and something happens and they're fighting, they're beating each other up, throw the person back in the ring, they're going, et cetera, one of two things happens. Either the lights go off, and then the lights come on, somebody's there, a la ECW, which did that a lot, or somebody's music is playing, and then all of a sudden, who comes trotting out? I wonder who that is. If I hear Real American, somehow I get the feeling that we're going to see Hulk Hogan rolling out there with a wheelchair and his walker. Yeah, let me tell you something, brother. Now, the element of surprise is that if I'm going to show up, I'm going to come out there unannounced.
Of course.
If somebody is getting into a fight, do you think that the friends of that person that's getting into a fight that's going to jump in is going to announce, guess what? I'm coming for you. I'm here. No,
you just hop in. Like, come on, now suck a bunch.
Like you used to see, cuckoo, and everybody just jumps out from everywhere, and then it's on.
Yep.
So what has to happen is the main reason why these companies do this is to allow the fans to know to expect somebody there, and in that same mindset of within the frame of kayfabe that the fans. It's just one of those quirks that fans expect to get a pop from the fans. But if MJF showed up at the end of All Out and you heard his music get played beforehand, and let's say he ran out in the middle of the show, that spoils the element of the surprise. So yeah, I can see that being a problem going forward. What do you think about that?
Me? Peeps, truth be told, I mean, of course, with the first part, I agree with you perfectly. The second part, it's like, listen, we as fans always love the element of surprise. And I think for me, I think I've just grown out of that show because it's always like, oh, we're supposed to expect this. For me, it's like I'm always on social media, so it's always like, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's not like the 1990s where the internet's not so much of a factor in what you need to see as a surprise.
Yes.
But then again, we don't want to know. See, my uncle, the great Triple C, the man goes ahead and sits there and always tells me, listen, don't read me the dirt sheets. Don't tell me what's going to happen. I want to go ahead and see this for myself. Don't tell me nothing. Like, I'll sit there and watch Raw. He'll watch it 3 hours later. I'll just tell him, listen, watch Raw. I won't be able to go ahead because I want him to be able to have the element of surprise.
Exactly.
That's what makes wrestling such a heightened drama. If we know what's going to happen before, or they just instantly call it out during the middle of a match, does it make it fun? I mean,
it can't be a surprise if you already know what's going to happen.
Exactly. Like, look at New Year's Revolution 2006. After the Elimination Chamber, you didn't think Edge was going to go ahead and cash in. See, fast forward now. Clash at the Castle. Did we actually think we were going to hear Austin Theory's music? No. After the amount of times that and for me, the minute I heard it,
be called Austin Theory going in also.
Amen once again to Triple H. Jeez, man. But truth be told, did we think Theory was coming out? No, the fact that I heard Theory while both men were down, I sat there and I said to myself, oh, really? Huh?
Yes.
I seemed like I was stupid to the fact of hearing his music. But then again, Tyson Fury, bah.
Yes.
Good way to go ahead and send me home packing. I was perfectly fine
Boy,
with
did that. He sold that like a
he sold the
champ.
punch perfect.
He went down like a sack of bricks. Just whoop.
Yup. It's like, bah. And that was funny. That was funny to me. But once again, surprises.
Yes.
Of course, we know that he held some money in the bank. But of course, with what we saw at SummerSlam, we didn't think that he was going to be that dumb to go ahead and try with any of these two. But he did. Could it have happened if Tyson Fury wasn't there? Maybe so. But of course, that's all the build up. You get it? Surprises are what we live for. If there's no surprise, if there is surprises that they talk about before, we don't enjoy it. Like,
Yes. And that's why just around the time that a pay-per-view or a big show happens, I stay away from the internet because I may have an idea something might happen, something I heard about maybe a week ago, but I go zero dark 30 when it comes to the internet. And so I can enjoy the show and say, you know what? I'm really enjoying this. I was expecting it, but I didn't know it was going to happen. And there's that enjoyment. And that's one thing that I will agree with your uncle in the fact that when we see these shows, the internet has probably killed more really good storylines that could have happened initially, but had to be changed because we knew some facsimile of it. How many times have we seen a show and something is happening, and the first thing is you see not only fans chanting for the person that eventually runs out, but you also see signs like they're expecting it to happen. And that's kind of one of the things that if I could bottle up things that have happened way back when, I'll give you perfect example. And this is going back to the 80s. But when Barry Windham joined the Four Horsemen, it was built to show you there was a little bit of doubt. J.J. Dillon kept trying to tweak him and saying that your partner, Lex Luger, there's going to come a point where Lex won't be there. So they have the tag team title match in Jacksonville, Florida. And what happened? The Horsemen beat Luger up during the match and bust him open. So that when Windham got into the tag and wrestled against Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, he went to make a tag. Luger's not out there. But Luger's not out there because he's not there. He's on the ground incapacitated, bleeding all over himself like he just got cut open badly. So by the time he finally sees Luger, tags him up, power slams him in the ring, gives him a lariat, and leaves him laying, and he joins the Horsemen. Those are the kinds of things that you don't get because you didn't know it was going to happen. And that was probably the most shocking heel turn maybe in the last 30, 40 years. And that's one of the reasons why the internet generation is spoiled to a lot of really good storylines.
Most definitely right on that. Most definitely
Yes.
right. Master Sean 007, we appreciate the question.
Very
Hopefully
good.
we answered it to the best of our abilities for you. From there, we go into another close friend here at Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Hot Rod 316, he says, with the little drama AEW was having, do you feel it's the right direction or move to give the belt back to Jon Moxley at Grand Slam, which is being held in NYC? Side note, I'm on my 6th beer when I wrote this question. Just had to add that one in, huh? Really?
Of course. Yeah.
Hot Rod, what can we do without you, man?
Yes.
But to answer your question, I feel that it would be the right listen. You know, I was reading this thing before I go ahead and say anything. You know, let me go ahead and cut the music. I was reading this thing off of Twitter about 2 days back, and it was a meme. And you know what the meme said? The meme said, "We're so sorry, and we send our condolences to the royal family on the passing of the Queen. God, you know, God save the Queen, most definitely." But then again, it was a picture of Tony Khan. And under it was, "We will now have a tournament to determine who will be the next king of England." And the next thing you saw was Jon Moxley right there in the corner saying, "Listen, this is my shot to go ahead and gain it back. The title of the king means so much to me and the fans."
That is funny.
Yes.
That's just as funny as the meme that I saw of somebody running with a Money in the Bank briefcase with now King Charles holding the briefcase, saying he's now going to cash in and become King of England. So yeah,
the
wrestling
memes,
fans
the
are
the internet has been livid this week. I saw one. I'll send it to you after, peeps, because if I were to be the type of person to go ahead and show it on the internet, we would be banned. I'll
check that one out later.
I won't even force it. But to answer your question, I don't think Moxley would be the right choice. I want Danielson. If it's coming from me, I want Danielson. I feel that putting the belt on Moxley is, I like what he did with that promo on Dynamite. Because now we see what Moxley's talking about. He's all in for the fans.
Yes.
Zing. Yeah, you probably caught that pun. But the fact that you're putting Moxley in that position to go ahead and be the face for the fans, that's amazing. But for me, it wouldn't be. I need to see Danielson reach that potential that we thought he was good. Because it's already been a year.
Yes.
It's already been a year since he showed up. So the most that we can
ironically also, the fact that Danielson had that match last year
at Grand
Slam against Kenny Omega, which we definitely know was one of the greatest matches AEW has had in their short 3-year history.
Oh, yes.
So
with that, I'd expect Bryan Danielson to be booked, especially with the match that he had this past week.
Oh, yes.
You would expect Danielson to reach the final. You would expect Danielson to at least win the world title. And if it's Danielson, listen, at the same location where he had his first title match, in a match that literally ended in a no contest due to the fact that the time ran out. So that leaves the optimism for hoping to see him win the title.
Yes.
Now's the time. I don't feel that Moxley should be the one that he should be able to have the match against them. But of course, it would be weird. Why? Because, Blackpool Combat Club, it just wouldn't. But I mean, listen, whatever goes ahead and sells, right? And that match most certainly would sell. There'd be two faces going ahead and looking to decide who goes ahead and holds that prestigious title in New York City.
Of course.
It writes itself. So for me, I want to go ahead and see it go in the direction of Bryan Danielson winning the title. How about yourself, peeps?
Oh, yeah, that would be a great choice, especially with the fact that he's been in the company now a year and has not won any championships yet. As a matter of fact, outside of him having the championship matches with Page and with Omega, he has not had a title match since. So yes, I think we need to see some kind of gold around the waist of Danielson going forward. Does it make that the right choice? I think so. But I don't know what direction that they plan on going. And then there are a lot of ways that you can branch off going forward. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to what they do. And if Danielson is the one that gets the call to wear the belt, I'm there.
Oh yes. Oh yes. So thank you, Hot Rod, for that enormous great question and that other comment towards the end. I can't get over this. Oh my lord.
Yeah.
Anywho. Okay,
Yes.
okay. Oh look, Hot Rod chimed in. He just went ahead and sent it in the. He says, "What about Darby? It's what's best for business." Darby hasn't hit that point yet for me. I don't know.
At this rate, as great and as over as Darby is, even though we know Darby is one of the pillars of AEW, I wonder if he's actually going to make it to the end of the year as much he puts his body through. I mean, it's amazing. The man, I don't know. He's kept together with glue, bubble gum, and ice cream. I don't know what's keeping him walking, but that's one of those things that you got to see. Can Darby be world champion? No, I don't see that happening. But I can see we saw that TNT run, championship run that he had, so we know he can do that. Or even putting that All Atlantic Championship on him. But as world champion, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, not yet. Just heightened drama.
I would see Sting as world champion before I see Darby Allin as world champion.
That says a lot.
Yeah. And that's not really a knock on Darby because he is so over with the fans, and he is exactly the type of person that AEW would build around as far as the talent and the will, much like Moxley as far as the way he's shown his love of the fans and the business and why he left WWE to go to AEW in the first place.
Yeah, I can agree on that. You see, Hot Rod, you were just on a perfect good run. What is you see, peeps, this is what I have to do. Look what he says. Stop kissing your uncle's ass. All hail King Hot Rod. You know something? It's cool. Because the minute he chimes in and he sees this, listen, yes. Y'all closer to each other than I am. I'm 1,000 miles away. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? Deal with him. He'll take care of it, not me. From there, we have the next question, and it comes in. Oh, haven't seen this. Okay, Tombstone City Adam. Tyson Fury and Elton John's collab album would win 5 Grammys, don't you think?
Good grief. My goodness. That karaoke thing at the bottom for me was just brutal. It was brutal. And I'm
Peeps, don't worry about it. Yeah, just tone it down. Don't worry.
I have to spray.
Yeah.
The stench of that.
Yeah. From there, we have the last one of the day. And I'm gonna cut the music because this is gonna be funny. It comes from Doctor of Thugonomics, and he says, just like your QB Zach Wilson, phenomenal one, Ace still got that dog in him. Himothy.
Oh my goodness. We've got 2 questions in the question segment tied directly into the main event topic for today.
Oh, man.
That is absolutely hilarious.
Isn't that just amazing?
Yes.
Isn't that just
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the questions. Of course, you know that if you want to go ahead and send in more, all you have to do, right down at the bottom, look at the ticker at Saturday afternoons _main event. DM us a question, be featured on the next episode of the show.
Remember, light side, dark side. Keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind.
And just like that, we're going to move into this final topic. And you see, Dodgy D-Pat chimes in perfectly at the right time. He says, yo, I'm here, boys. You know, I will have my thoughts on the issue at AEW.
And we're definitely looking forward to hearing what you got to say.
Yeah, you know, as I titled this topic, if you looked at the title of the show, if you're chimed in on either Twitch, YouTube, or Twitter, you know that I put, what in the blue hell is going on in AEW? Right now, I'm just going to title this topic, Whoa.
Now, is that a Joey Lawrence whoa? Like, whoa? Or is this a Jesse Ventura? Whoa.
I think it's more of the body.
Of course.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it has to be that.
Okay.
Now, peeps, I'm don't worry. I'm gonna try my hardest to start this off, even though it's gonna be, pretty deafening. But I'll try my hardest, okay?
Okay.
The year is 2022. We just come off of maybe one of the best returns in MJF, coming back as the Joker, winning the Casino ladder match as Joker, getting the chip, coming out to a sold out now arena in Chicago, Illinois, after CM Punk just won the world title, and he gets cheered more than CM Punk. Of course, we talked about this at the beginning of the show.
Yes, vociferously, by the way.
Yes. And then after that, of course, like every other big show, just like Clash at the Castle did the day before, you have the post-show press conference, or what AEW called the media scrum. Ooh. So, peeps, don't worry about it. I'm gonna go ahead and do it like this. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to sit back and listen to it because I have the audio from the media scrum here. So we're gonna kick back, chillax, and listen to what CM Punk had to say with his opening remarks. And, this is going to tell a full-on story. Okay? So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Hi, Nick Hausman with Wrestling Inc.
I'll start, Nick.
And it's the fact that he doesn't even want to play.
Show of hands.
See this, peeps? This is what I'm talking about. Things like this always happen.
You're a journalist, Nick? All
I
right.
try my best.
Okay. No, real quick.
Go ahead.
You still do improv?
No, not a little bit.
No?
No.
When you did improv, who'd you do improv with?
I did it with Scott Colton.
Okay, so you fancy yourself a journalist. Would you say you're friends with Scott Colton?
No, I haven't talked to Scott in some time.
So you're not friends with him?
No, Scott and I do not see eye to eye.
Oh, wow. Well, that makes two of us. My point is, if you fancy yourself a journalist, even if it's for the silly world of professional wrestling, and you have journalistic integrity, people who report things, mostly that are bullshit, and slanderous lies against myself, if you are friends with somebody, you blew my spot. If you're not friends with them, I apologize.
It's okay.
But you should probably disclose who you're friends with.
I'm not friends with you
I
or
haven't had
Scott.
anything to do with Scott Colton in almost a decade. Probably wanted nothing to do with him even longer than that. It's fucking unfortunate that I have to come up here and speak on this when I'm on my time and this is a fucking business. Why I'm a grown-ass adult man and I decide not to be friends with somebody is nobody else's fucking business. But my friends, if I fall backwards, will catch me. Scott Colton, I felt, never would have. My problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that did not want to see me at the top. Okay? You call it jealousy, you call it envy, whatever the fuck it is. My relationship with Scott Colton ended long before I paid all of his bills. I have every receipt. I have every invoice. I have every email. I have the email where he says, and I quote, "I agree to go our separate ways. I will get my own lawyer and you do not have to pay anymore." That's an email that I have. The only reason the public did not see is because when I finally had to countersue him through discovery, we discovered he shared a bank account with his mother. That's a fact. And as soon as we discovered that fact and we subpoenaed old Marcia, he sent the email, "Oh, can we please drop all this?" Now, it's 2022. I haven't been friends with this guy since at least 2014, late 2013. And the fact that I have to sit up here because we have irresponsible people who call themselves EVPs and couldn't fucking manage a target, and they spread lies and bullshit and put into a media that I got somebody fired when I have fuck all to do with him, want nothing to do with him, do not care where he works, where he doesn't work, where he eats, where he sleeps. And the fact that I have to get up here and do this in 2022 is fucking embarrassing. And if y'all are at fault, fuck you. If you're not, I apologize. But what did I ever do in this world to deserve an empty-headed fucking dumb fuck like Hangman Adam Page to go out on national television and fucking go into business for himself? For what? What did I do, Dave? What did I ever do?
You tell me.
Didn't do a goddamn thing. What's your name, sir?
Dominic D'Angelo.
Fuck the Pittsburgh Penguins. What are you doing?
I'm from Pittsburgh.
I made it really clear in Forbes, and I just want to make it clear again. Nick,
It's not his position to make it very fucking clear. There's people who call themselves EVPs that should have fucking known better. This shit was none of their business. I understand sticking up for your fucking friends. I fucking get it. I stuck up for that guy more than anybody. Okay? I paid his bills until I didn't, and it was my decision not to.
Yeah, but I shouldn't have no commented when Nick first said it. It's my fault, and if I hadn't, it's my fault. It's my
I
fault.
appreciate
I
that,
should have
but
just taken it head on because you never
But
said
I'm trying to
anything.
run a fucking business, and when somebody who hasn't done a damn thing in this business jeopardizes the first $1 million house that this company has ever drawn off of my back and goes on national television and does that, it's a disgrace to this industry, it's a disgrace to this company. Now, we're far beyond apologies, right? I gave him a fucking chance. It did not get handled, and you saw what I had to do, which was very regrettable, lowering myself to his fucking level. But that's where we're at right now. And I will still walk up and down this hallway and say, if you have a fucking problem with me, take it up with me. Let's fucking go. What's your question, Nick?
First of all, you're always very nice to me, and thank you. I wanted to ask about MJF. Obviously, he played a voicemail from you before he came out. Obviously, confronted you, Punk. Why now? Why is MJF back in the fold now? How do you both feel about him being around? How do you feel about the time he spent away? All of that.
Well, if I may, I am the one who asked him to come back because MJF's a big star in this company, and this is one of the biggest events. A year ago, CM Punk debuted here, and I thought it was right for the fans. And like I said, for the fans, I thought the best thing that we could do as a company was bring MJF back.
He wants me to work with pricks constantly. That's what it is.
Nevertheless, two of the top wrestlers in the world, MJF and CM Punk, could be a big match down the line.
Sorry to keep bringing this fucking up, but I've never spoken his word, and I don't know how long, so I'm a little fucking pissed off about it.
That's fine.
When it came down that he was going to sue me, I asked to talk to him. He refused. I asked for mediation. It was denied. I offered him money. He said it was not enough. He went ahead with the lawsuit and sued. It's his fucking funeral. I don't care. He shares a bank account with his mother. It tells you all you need to know about what kind of character that is.
You were always very nice to me. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Nick. I'm sorry if I'm a little fucking snippy.
That's fine. That's
I'm
fine.
hurt and I'm old and I'm fucking tired. And I work with fucking children.
I respect your situation.
I regret not answering your question.
And
the first
I
time
only
around.
asked.
First off, peeps, that train that was running in the back had to be deafening, right?
Yeah, boy, could I tell you, it was one way to running over literally everybody that stepped anywhere near those tracks. You know, first of all, we'll apologize for those that may have been offended by the coarse language, but
Yes.
that was figuring we needed to let people know what happened at the media scrum in its full impact of what was happening there.
Exactly. So
We will apologize up front for just all of the coarse language that happened with that at the media scrum.
of course, you know, it wasn't something that we wanted to do, but it just had to happen just so you can get the full on experience of what Punk really had to go ahead and say. And first and foremost, peeps, I kid you not, because I watched this whole thing live. So shout out to Denise Salcedo for actually going ahead and, you know, getting a voice audio that was actually good, hearing CM Punk's actual voice other than what AEW had on their website.
Yes, because you know that was heavily edited also.
Yes.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I'm sitting there and I hear Nick from Wrestling Inc. about to go ahead and ask a question. And I hear about improv, and I'm like, you know, where's Punk going with this? You know, Punk is always like a Roddy Piper. He always likes to, or, you know, Jake the Snake. He always likes to speak in tongues and, like, you know, have parables or whatever the case may be. So I'm thinking he's going somewhere with this. And then I hear him bring up the name Scott Colton. I thought for a second, and you know, of course, a lot of people aren't always going ahead and, you know, being synonymous with, you know, real names of professional wrestlers. But of course, I was that's something that's just a calling to me. And I hear Scott Colton. I'm like, wait. No way he's bringing up Colt Cabana. What the, like, what? Like, they don't talk no more. Like, what's the point behind this? And, you know, you hear this story. of course, we know that there's been a lot going on in the past couple of months, especially when we were leading up to All, I believe it was Double or Nothing. And there was a promo cut by Hangman Adam Page while CM Punk was in the ring, and so was Tony Schiavone. And Page really went into business for himself, is what Punk kind of said, in stating that, Punk isn't the same when the cameras are off and when that red light goes off. He isn't the same when he's backstage. And of course, we can all remember when Page uttered the words, "I won't be defending the AEW title against you. I will be defending AEW from you," showing that he did not want Punk there. So we already know him and Page, they weren't cool. That's settled. Colt Cabana, we already knew that stuff was, whatever, talking about he was the reason he got Cabana fired, whatever the case may be with that. But you think that was left? It wasn't. Why? Because as Punk alluded to, EVPs that can't run a target. Of course, we know that he's talking about AEW's executive vice presidents, the Young Bucks, Nick and Matt Jackson, and of course, Kenny Omega. Now, I understand. Punk wants to go ahead and bring all these things to light because he feels as if the press has been bad-mouthing him from the beginning of how he's a nuisance to the locker room, how he feels as if he's being treated unfairly, and that these guys really don't know what the heck they're doing. But the issue that I have with all of this is that we know that when Punk has a microphone in his hand or when Punk is literally speaking, people will shut up and listen. How far does it get? We don't know. But the fact that we all know that when Punk says something, there is a 9 times out of 10% chance that it will be controversial. And that's exactly what this was. Because as we know, ladies and gentlemen, this media scrum was trending 3 days straight on Twitter when MJF wasn't even trending at all. How much does that tell you?
Yes.
Now, I understand. As I said, Punk needs to go ahead and go in business for himself to go ahead and prove to the world that he's not who he says he is. But why air all that dirty laundry out? Why speak on Scott Colton in the first place when he wasn't even on the card? Why go ahead and badmouth the EVPs when you know Tony Khan is sitting right next to you? Why do all of that? When Cody was out there, okay, let's put it this way. Peeps. Now, when you would put Punk in a position at WWE to go ahead and have a press conference, if Vincent Kenny McMahon was in the room, do you think Punk would say anything out of that context?
Maybe, but not to the extent of this and not to that extent, unless they allowed it to be used as a storyline.
But we know this isn't.
Exactly.
So that's the first thing. Second thing, Heaps. You really think that you were going to go ahead and come out of this alive? Let's be honest here. The guys are backstage. Who knows? They could have even been in the room while this man was speaking, because we know Punk is fearless. Punk will say what he wants to say on his mind. But do you really think you were going to come out of that arena alive? Most definitely not. So let's fast forward here a couple of minutes later. Punk goes traveling around the arena, whatever the case may be, after he's eating his muffin, and drinking his, Czech soda, whatever the case with that was.
Yeah.
And he's with Ace Steel, of course, his longtime friend and trainer. And they cross paths with the Young Bucks and Omega. Words were said, things were done, fights were ensued. And among all those fights, we hear that Ace Steel goes ahead and throws a chair at, I believe it was Matt or Nick Jackson.
Was that Nick?
Nick Jackson busts open the man's eye. Then we hear that I believe somebody got bitten. And I believe it was Kenny who bit who. Or was it the other way around?
It was Omega that got bit, and he had his hair pulled. Listen, just listen to just listen to this. This sounds like 5th grade, 7th grade, pre-teen soap opera nonsense. You took my girlfriend. You took my boyfriend. You took the. Well, I'm gonna go ahead with. That's literally what it sounds like. A bunch of super egos versus a bunch of other super egos clashing over something that should have not been brought out in the first place. And what you just described, we've only heard a couple of versions of. Still, somewhere in the middle of that, there's always your side, my side, and the truth. The truth is somewhere in the middle of all of that meandering and all of the fighting and all of the gaga that went on along with all of that stuff. But the fact remains, as you stated beforehand, hearing the sound of that train that came through and literally ran over everybody at that media scrum, and then to find out that the train actually made a stop in the locker room to finish everyone off. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So the fight happens, whatever. Fast forward to Monday. We find out that news. While the media scrum is trending, okay? We don't know about the fight until about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm getting ready for Raw. I'm at work. I get the tweet, and I say, oh gosh, I need to tell Peeps about this.
Yes.
Same time I'm talking to Peeps about the media scrum, I look on Twitter. I'm like, wait, did you hear about the fight? He's like, oh yeah, I heard about the fight. And then we hear that many other people were involved. Fast forward to Tuesday, we hear that Kenny Omega, Nick and Matt Jackson, Christopher Daniels, along with other AEW talent, were suspended. While we know that there is a slight chance, or, mid 50% chance that CM Punk and Ace Steel may be either suspended or unfortunately fired. Now, within all of this, we understand the memo. Okay. All this happens because somehow, I guess, the first thing to go ahead and put the powder in the keg was the Young Bucks going ahead and, airing this all out through the locker room. That probably boosted down the morale. People probably looked at Punk a different way, or the case may be. But now with Punk, it's like he really, as he said, he stooped down to that level. He pulled that card. And it's unfortunate to see it happen, but we know how Punk is. Now, I remember when Punk left WWE, I said, listen, Vince is toxic. I blamed it on, management. I said, listen, it's their fault he left. But, let's not forget here. Wasn't Punk the same way in Ring of Honor before he left there? And you see, it's funny that I say that because now I'm looking at the comments and I see that Dodgy literally just said something. And Dodgy said, CM Punk has always been an issue with whatever company he's worked for. He was trouble in Ring of Honor, demanding his friends got titles and more money or he was leaving. So now it's an issue that the Bucks and Omega want to do good things for their friend in Hangman. Hypocrite. So that already tells you, if I know and Dodgy knows, then that means, listen, many of the fans know that Punk has his slight chances in toxicity. But once again, he does it in WWE because he was never able to go ahead and main event a WrestleMania. And on top of that, now he's doing it in AEW because things aren't rolling his way. So Tony goes ahead and takes it upon himself to suspend everyone. And he strips everybody of titles. But in that stance, we also hear that Punk got injured, in which we know that it probably wasn't during the match. It was probably during the brawl after the media scrum. So now not only do you get suspended, but once again, you get injured. And now you're without a title. And now you may potentially be out for a job. But within all of this, it's like everything that has been done in the dark has officially come to the light. And now AEW is somewhat deemed an unsafe working environment due to the fact that now you have EVPs and talent going at it due to pettiness. And that's what I'm going to call it, because at the end of the day, business is business. Friends are friends. Those two don't mix. Never once do they mix. If you're about business, you're about business. If you're about friendship, you're about friendship. I was listening to Jim Cornette the other day. I believe it was Tuesday. And he was talking about this. And he said, I would totally say that I'm not going to put Punk at fault. And I'm not going to put the Bucks at fault. But the fact of the matter is that they both indulged themselves into pettiness by having to go ahead and make this a situational problem in their workplace where they're trying to go ahead and build things up. But where does Tony Khan come in all of this, peeps, you may ask? Maybe he just doesn't assert his authority. Maybe what MJF said in his promo before leaving for a couple of months about the only position Tony Khan should assume is behind the guardrail with the fans. Maybe that reigns true. I would say so, because people are deeming Tony Khan as a mark with money. Just a fan, just about seeing his dream matches come true in his business. Nothing about running the company, just wanting to see magic happen. And maybe it's true, because the fact that each and every single one of those names that I mentioned walked over his assertion of dominance, vetoed whatever he may have wanted to have been said in that scrum, allowed a fight to ensue while he is the president of that company and was there in attendance that night, and now has to go ahead and go from revitalizing the talent, making sure that everyone's morale is on point to go ahead and go into the next months before the new year starts. And he has to go ahead and go through all of this 3 years into going ahead and starting the company. Peeps, what is your overall thought beginning from the night that this happened up until today, September 10th, 2022?
Whew. Loaded question. I'm going to try and parse everything the best way I can to be as concise, because I don't want to go rambling too far into every other direction. I'm going to try to do what I can as far as to kind of get it as concise as I can. First and foremost, I have no problem with Punk feeling that he needed to address something where it came across as I have to defend myself because I haven't had the opportunity to defend myself. Because just going on what happened between himself and Paige came across looking really foolish with that promo from a while back. And if you remember when that promo was cut, CM Punk was like, well, I don't understand why you're so angry. Why are you making this so personal? He said that during the promo in the ring. So he knew on some level that was like, okay, something's off. But he kept it professional within that setting of promo main event between you and I to build this match. Keep that to the side. Okay, fine. Then you remember the promo that CM Punk cut about being disrespected and throwing Paige under the bus before he had the beginning of that feud to start between himself and Moxley to unify those championships. Okay? That made him look bad because Paige was, one, not in the building, two, couldn't defend himself, and three, even if he did, he would be looked at as going into business for himself then, because then he's showing up to answer in a feud that had nothing to do with him. That's not making money with him in the equation. So that was a calculated plan by Punk to throw Paige under the bus. Okay, we fast forward. You have the match. Punk loses his championship, as we talked about before, in a 3-minute squash. They built the story of him re-injuring his ankle. He's hurt. Fine. He's going to get that rematch. They brought Ace Steel out. Punk is in front of the Chicago fans doing all of those things that he's supposed to be doing, bringing the drama, since they were in Chicago, to build him as a face. which we had thought at some point Punk would probably be better off as a heel. Boy, did we know that Punk is a legitimate natural heel, because we now fast forward to that match at All Out where he lost the championship, and going into that injury that you talked about, from what it was being reported, from what I read, it was the dive that he did over the top rope that might have torn either his pec or his tricep, because he was shown in the locker room icing his arm down. And now, if it is indeed a pectoral muscle that's torn, and we've heard about these, we've seen in recent history pecs being torn, i.e. Cody Rhodes, that's at least 8 months. So you already have somebody who was world champion get hurt. Then he wins the championship again, gets hurt again. Now, if this injury happened during the melee, it makes Punk look even worse. But Punk does not look good in this situation at all. The Bucks, like you said, being in the locker room with all of this stuff going on, that doesn't make them look good, because there were reports also that a lot of the things that happened with Colt Cabana and all that stuff were leaked to the internet community by the Bucks. Now, we can't substantiate that. We don't know that. That's just hearsay, or all that's the case. But if that is indeed the case, we are dealing with a company full of children. Children. And the reason why I say that is CM Punk, the way that the interview was constructed, the way he said what he said, the fact that he had emails, the fact that he had receipts, this comes across as something that he planned on doing maybe a week ago.
Yep.
Maybe 2 weeks ago. Because the reporter just asked him a question, and he went from Colt Cabana to Colt Cabana's mother to the EVPs of the company. Executives, mind you, that are supposed to be executives in an executive position, which happen to be talent.
Not
And
to
then he
mention,
went off. Yes.
not to mention that even Nick didn't even go ahead and get his question off. He
No.
let Punk go on that rant. And the minute he asks that question again and Tony begins to answer, Punk gets back into it.
Yes. And even more so, Omega and the Bucks were supposed to actually be there at the media scrum to answer questions, and they didn't. And then he went on to MJF, which wasn't played in that quote, but literally, I think some of it was shoot, but the majority of it was work, because I think that the next storyline going forward would have been CM Punk, MJF 2. And I think that what was going on is MJF is laying the groundwork for being AEW World Champion. That's why I think that's where it was headed. And Punk said something along the lines of MJF is a talented guy, but the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water
it.
And that is one of the best quotes I can take out of CM Punk. But then he went on to say, basically, MJF likes to take a dump where the grass is, and he takes it where he eats, and that's not what's supposed to happen. Make sure that everything is different, but he's a talented guy, et cetera, et cetera. That was the sell part of the feud going forward with those two. CM Punk seems to have always had this idea of being a big guy as far as his importance to the business. He's very acerbic. We know that. We've seen it. We've heard it. We've heard all of the multitude of people that are still in WWE that have had nothing but negative things to say about CM Punk. And the more and more that we hear, the more and more we're starting to see that although, like I said, Punk had a right to defend himself, hence light side. The problem is you don't air your dirty laundry out in the public, and that's dark side. You don't go into the locker room and antagonize the guys that you have a problem with, dark side. And you certainly don't attack people who are EVPs in positions of power, regardless of whether they're talented or not, dark side. And I'm going to also reference something that happened kind of a roundabout way. Do you remember the Hall of Fame ceremony that happened in New York back in 2019, just 2019,
Yes.
with Triple H. They were inducting, I believe it was the NWO that was going into the Hall of Fame at the time. And Triple H was in the ring, and he kind of addressed AEW as they were just starting. And he made what I thought were some crass comments about AEW, and they were joking around. We had the New Age Outlaws were there, and he was joking around about saying, Vince will buy that piss ant company just so he could fire you. Those were the comments. But then he also made a reference to there's certain people that want EVP titles next to their name to think that they're better, think that does anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember, because I was actually there when I saw that, and was like, you know what? That's low, because AEW didn't even have a TV show at the time. They were just the apple in someone's eye. They were just a cell. They hadn't grown fully yet. And I thought that it was really low for Triple H to go out there and really dump on a company that didn't even have a full-out roster, a TV show, an idea, etc. Little did I know, as we fast forward now to September 10th, 2022, that a majority of the things that Triple H said, even though some of it was I think, out of bounds, he was 100% right about. And I find it funny that Triple H said something about EVPs, because if you remember, Triple H was executive vice president of talent relations, as far as booking, et cetera, et cetera. He's running NXT at the time and doing literally the same things that the EVPs in AEW were doing. What ended up happening is that Triple H has a better handle on how to build talent and get them ready for that main roster push based on the system that they were doing. Yeah. Whereas Kenny Omega was booking for the women's division, the Bucks were booking for the tag team division and some other things that were going there. Cody Rhodes was also an executive vice president. If you remember, he was also one of those EVPs that tried to build the talent, to build the roster. And his vision of AEW was as a sports presentation. That's the reason why his idea was to show the wrestlers, to have win-loss records on the chyron that shows on the screen. It shows you who they are, who they beat, the importance of the matches, because that's what's supposed to matter. That was Cody's idea. That's what he thought. And that somehow changed. The Bucks seem to be more about the entertainment aspect of it. And one of the things that a lot of people have really hated about the Bucks, outside of a lot of the fact that their matches, as good as they are as far as athletes, as far as doing a lot of the moves, that a lot of time their moves and their move sets have no rhyme or reason in a lot of instances. In a lot of instances, they don't seem to sell the way others sell in certain matches. And they're more about the entertainment aspect of the tag team matches, as far as 900 super kicks and all of the backflips and all of the other things that we've seen in those matches. I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, including Jim Cornette, who has railed on them ad nauseum on a regular basis. And I know a lot of friends that think the same way. So where am I going with this? The fact remains that CM Punk, with his personality, with the vitriol that he's had for a lot of people that are within the company, that he felt to get grudges out in the open, threw a handful of people under the bus. The Bucks and Kenny Omega were wrong in the sense that they acted like a bunch of scorned school children. You talked about me. We got to start throwing hands, knowing that they were already in the back. Punk getting into that fight. And then, of course, we know Ace Steel, who probably is going to hear about, lawsuits or some kind of legal trouble, whatever is the case, throwing a chair at one of the talent, and then your EVP is not acting like executives. That's stupid. The whole thing is stupid. The whole thing took away from a great night where we're supposed to be talking, once again, light side, about the world championship changing hands and CM Punk being the face of that company. And then we go dark side And we just went from the Summer of Punk Part 2 to the Fall of Punk today. And I mean that both on the literal and the metaphorical standpoint. The fall of Punk has been shown right in the eyes of everybody for everyone to see. And I think that the saddest part about this whole thing is MJF, who we should have been talking about at the beginning of the show, showing up, was only a footnote for this weekend. He was reduced to a footnote. And that is absolutely disgusting as far as I'm concerned. And that's the last thing I'm going to say about that.
I hear you, peeps. Next question that I have. Hot Rod even went ahead and alluded to this, and I'm going to go ahead and piggyback off of it and add to this question. He says, what do you think is the best way to handle this situation? For me, I'm going to go ahead and add something to this, peeps, that can certainly tie in. What is the future of all these men involved in this situation as well? So for us, what should we do to go ahead and ensure that AEW gets better and doesn't have this kind of stuff again? Can I go ahead and answer this question first, if it's cool?
Go ahead, sure.
Point blank, period. The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, stripped of EVP titles. That's number one. Because you do not, I repeat, you do not put a wrestler at an executive vice president title when they have no background as an EVP. I was talking to peeps about this a couple of days ago, and I'm going to go ahead and use this again. Peeps, let's say, okay, you have a degree in communications, to put it that way, right? And I go ahead and pick you to be the president of a steel company. What am I doing? Is my company going to go ahead and shoot straight through the roof? Or are you going to pull a Stone Cold Steve Austin of 1999 and burn the whole thing down to the ground? Which one?
Yeah. Perfect example.
Okay. The Bucks, Omega, by far the best piece of talent that exists in the world of professional wrestling today. Why put an EVP title behind it? Did they have some type of knowledge about it in New Japan? Were they that good of it at PWG? Were these guys like, what? Just because like they were part of the Bullet Club and head of the Bullet Club, that makes you think they're going to be the head of like, like an executive vice president. You put the, and again, it sucks that I have to go ahead and say it's Tony Khan's fault, but it is Khan's fault. You do not, I repeat, do not go ahead and do. We know how they like the Bucks were when they, created the whole pro wrestling guerrilla thing. We know how this was. Booking led all to them. These guys were the talk of the town back in Cali. We know that these guys were goated because they were always booked the right way in their terms of how they wanted to do it. Because, of course, the indies, it's free for all. You do what you have to do to make yourself, pop. These guys did exactly that. But I think the fact that they're forgetting that this is supposed to be a company that is supposed to thrive on other talent, not just them. And it is not, one for all. It's not everybody for themselves. It's not man eat man world. It is, we're in this together for the common goal to thrive as a 21st century professional wrestling company. But they don't see that. No. You see, what we've seen is, we're going to put the titles on us. First and foremost, let's just have the longest title reign as tag champions. Let's go ahead and book ourselves into all the good storylines. Let's make ourselves the talk of the town. Let's go ahead and create this and create that. Anything that benefits the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, this is what we're doing.
And I will add to what you just said. I want you to think about that. And I think I alluded to this last week. Most people, the consensus is in AEW, the best tag team in that company is FTR. And most people are figuring, especially since FTR got the IWGP tag team titles, Ring of Honor tag team champions, AAA tag team championship, why are they not getting AEW tag team title matches, and why are they not AEW tag team champions? Now, the Bucks aren't the champs, and this is something that I can actually kind of give the Bucks credit for, that they've had the AEW tag team championships before, but they waited quite some time before they put the belts on themselves because they wanted to get the other tag teams over before the look at nepotism went along. Okay, if you want to go there, fine. But FTR and the Bucks, most people wanted to see that as a match, but we haven't gotten that feud. And the problem seems to be that the Bucks don't want that attention differential between FTR and the Bucks. So what has happened? FTR has been in a lot of six-man matches. We saw, for those that looked at Rampage, saw without question one of the best Ring of Honor world title matches I've seen in quite some time between Dax Harwood and Claudio Castagnoli, which was a great world title match. While he's having these kinds of matches as a tag team, when are they going to get that match against the Bucks? Well, instead, let's move them over to the side and we'll get the trios championships. So that's kind of where they've been positioning themselves. And as I've said before, the Bucks, the way they present themselves is that there are a lot of times that people, they almost look like they think that they're the Road Warriors, where they book themselves like big, strong guys, even though they're 6 foot nothing, 200 nothing a piece. The Rock and Roll Express, they were shorter guys, but they kind of do a lot of those great tag team moves, et cetera, but they were great workers individually. A lot of people don't say that about the Bucks, even though, like I said before, they're athletic, they have great moves, they have great timing, almost straight out of a video game. The problem that a lot of people have is that you can't have quote unquote real wrestling if every move you do is something that's out of a cheat code. Yep. This is what a lot of people have said about the Bucks. I like watching the Bucks and watching their matches. It's the problem behind them is how they book themselves. And these kinds of instances kind of show why they get the criticism that they get. And right now, it's not a good look. And who knows how long. Now they're signed until 2024. So they signed extensions, I think, last year. So they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But like you stated, EVP titles, I don't know. It's not necessary. And then going forward, Tony Khan is going to have to delegate a lot of his control to other executives that are in the wrestling business that have the company's best interests in mind. Exactly. And then make sure that that control stays away from the other wrestlers. You can have other wrestlers give input, like Bryan Danielson has given input in certain times here and there, that kind of thing, because that's one of the reasons why a lot of wrestlers go to AEW, is that they have input in their fusion. That makes perfect sense. But executive vice president, what really does that hold as far as what are they doing? Are they sitting in boardroom meetings? Are they doing certain? I know Kenny Omega was doing, for the most part, the video game for the company. He's helping the programmers and doing all of that stuff. But outside of that side, what else? Exactly. This has to stop. They have to refocus. They have to make sure that the fans are put first. And that's the reason why Moxley's promo held so much water on Wednesday. Passionate. It showed the love that he has for the business, love for the fans, and love for the company. And that has to come first. Tony Khan gets a huge blame here because let's really be honest, Tony Khan has not done enough to show you what he needed to do to keep this under wraps. Like I said before, light side, dark side. Exactly. The dark side of the business is what we started to see creep on camera. And we need to make sure that this does not expose everything else, and we can continue to watch the wrestling business for what it is, the beautiful business that it is, for the matches and the characters and the storylines that are there, without it creeping back into being a dark side business. And that is the last thing that I want to see happen.
Exactly. Dodgy says something, and I was going to go ahead and say this also. So, of course, he talks about the EVP thing, and he says second, Punk needs to be given his pink slip. Third and fourth, it's pretty much what we just said. But the second one is what I want to go ahead and stick back on. I said last week that I believe it's truly time for Punk to go ahead and hang it up. He's done everything in this business. He's given blood, sweat, tears. It's time to hang it up. I don't care if you want to go ahead and go about the route of saying that, oh, you know, I still have enough talent to go ahead and work with. Listen, I think that just went on the drain. The fact that you said that, oh, I'm old, I'm tired, and I'm working with dumb-minded children. When you said exactly a year back that, oh, there is a lot of young talent out there in the back that would surely want to go ahead and work with. Yeah, that rang true. Yeah, that certainly rang true. But peeps, lastly, this question.
Okay.
You certainly believe that it's time for Punk to go. You believe that Punk should be fired?
I actually have the feeling that one of two things is going to happen. He's either already entertained the aspect with Tony Khan, or Khan has brought it up to him. Because I'm pretty sure Tony Khan is absolutely pissed off about this whole thing.
I mean, we saw his face during the scrum.
Yes, he's embarrassed. And this is something that I've also noticed, that Tony Khan does a lot more listening to Jim Cornette as far as his advice. And he's taken some of those steps here and there. But there's also a little bit of an ego with Tony Khan, where he's a fan with a checkbook, which a lot of people have said. Tony Khan needs to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And my final word on this whole situation is, I think it makes sense, if you want to hold on for however long Punk is out with this injury, and you think that it makes the most sense for him not to be there, and show the example of what you do not do in my company, then you have to do what you have to do. And if that means to fire Punk, give him his pink slip and let him move on. And Punk, it's not as if Punk doesn't have anything to do, because before he got back into wrestling, he was in Hollywood trying to make movies and acting. So if he wants to do that, he can definitely do that. He's got a great presence. He's really good, obviously, in front of a camera, and definitely very good in front of a microphone if he wants to do that. He's still, I think, a very good talent in ring, but it seems to be that he just can't stay healthy. Not in the long run, just on a wrestling standpoint. He can't stay healthy between the broken foot and then the injury that he's potentially had from the pay-per-view.
Yes.
And now the injured, bruised, I don't know if you want to say bruised ego or whatever is the case.
I mean, that's been bruised for a long time, peeps.
Yes. And this isn't to say anything personally about Punk, because I think Punk is a great talent in the ring.
Sure.
And I know why he did what he did the way he did it. Exactly. My issue is, it did not need to be done out in public in front of the camera, airing his dirty laundry out on a company that is trying to go forward and distinguish itself differently from the WWE, which we now know this is a full-on war now. As much as AEW, as I've said before, they should be taking up the mantle of making their product better, so that the fans know that this is completely the antithesis of what WWE is. Everything that they do, we're doing the opposite of. Let's continue on that route and build out our company to be stronger. They're barely 3 years old, and we're already talking about insubordination, fights in the locker room, people being suspended, people wanting out. We haven't even touched on the fact that there are people that are leaving the company, like Malachi Black, which we talked about last week about at the way he requested his release, but it was somewhat denied. Now we know he officially has gotten his it's a conditional release. Those are the kinds of things that AEW is now going to have to right the ship on. And this just highlights what can't be done. And I think that's the last thing that I will say about this whole situation.
Well, of course, Dodgy just said one more thing. He says one big problem AEW and Tony Khan now has is that the Bucks, Omega, Hangman, Moxley Bryan, Regal, Cole, Baker, Wardlow, and Maxwell have told Khan either Punk goes or we go. Crazy as it sounds, but it will cost Tony more money to terminate Punk's contract than it will to terminate all the others I just mentioned because Punk's contract is at $8.5 million.
Yes. Well, that's what you get when you do deals with the devil. And apparently, the devil is starting to show some of the dark side that he can bring. As I said before, Tony Khan has to do better. And I think unless you want to have insubordination and chaos in your locker room, which can be almost irreversible, you have to do that. And if those wrestlers that are torn apart by this, and we're not talking about just suspension, they're off of TV for a month or whatever the case, fines, suspensions, we probably already know there might be legal issues involved because there was physical altercation. So we already know that this isn't the end of this.
It's
at the minimum. But this has to go away. And if you think that the reason why this happened is because of one Charles Montgomery Punk, then you have to cut bait and move on. The last thing this company needs is to have that albatross around their neck. And the parallels that I've brought up, I talked about this with a friend of mine, the parallels that this company has now to late WCW. Whereas you have a company that is in the middle of a merger and they are getting all of these TV shows canceled off of their network, TNT and TBS. And all they're doing is live broadcasts and sports and blockbuster movies and TV repeats. They're looking for a reason to cut costs. And if they think that they don't care about a wrestling show on their channel that can do well because of all this extra drama, they will cut bait. And Khan is not running one company as far as wrestling. He's running two. One that doesn't even have a channel for their content yet, which I personally believe at some point Rampage is going to eventually be Ring of Honor's home on a long-term basis, and I think that would actually work. But they have to make sure that for the growth of their business, if they think that CM Punk is the problem, they have to assure their fans and the wrestlers in the back we're taking care of this and that this will never happen again. Because if you want to alienate all of that great talent you have in the locker room by keeping Punk around for another 7 or 8 months until he heals up from his injury, you are really rolling the dice. And I do not think you want to roll the dice in a situation like this.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Wow.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end to this topic.
Yes.
And, I think we went a little over the marker, but it's good that we went ahead and we just let all of that ride out because I kid you not, this has been troubling our minds for the past week. And to see that it's finally gone astray and we've gotten it out and we've heard you guys say what you guys have to say, I'm certainly intrigued by this. I'm happy that this happened. And for this, let's just see where it goes. But for me, I've spoken my piece.
Yes.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this marks the end of Season 4, Episode 9 of the phenomenon known as Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Certainly, we thank you for going ahead and tuning in and listening to what we have to say and basking into this news with us. We ask you that you continue to be the fans that you guys are. Continue to do what you guys do best because it is what you guys do that makes us be the very best at what we do.
Yes.
So, on this very episode of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, I, the Phenomenal One.
And I, the Peeps Nate. Just remember, we came.
We saw.
And in the words of the great Paul Heyman, we conquered.
We conquered. Dr. D-Pad says, no, don't go. And he says, Nate, give me a woo.
Woo! There you go.
Fun of it. There we go. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to episode 9. We certainly look forward to seeing you guys episode 10 next week. Exactly same time, same place. Still the same energy here at Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. So it is once again me, the Phenomenal One, and right next to me, the Peeps Nate. Signing off. Peace, love, and farewell.